Hi, this is Michelle, and welcome to Stories with Michelle. Tonight's story is Tom Thumb. I changed the title of my YouTube channel from Stories with Ms. Pink to Stories with Michelle. It might take a while for that to all catch up, so I kind of have both in my title right now. So here we go. Tom Thumb. In the days of the great King Arthur, there lived a mighty magician called Merlin. He was the most skillful wizard in the world had ever seen. This famous magician, who could take any form he pleased, was once traveling about as a beggar. Being very tired, he stopped at a poor cottage to rest and asked for some food. The countryman who lived there made him welcome, and the man's wife, who was a very kind woman, brought him some milk in a wooden bowl and a coarse brown bread on a platter. Merlin was much pleased, but he could not help seeing the man and his wife seemed unhappy, although everything was neat and snug in the cottage. When Merlin asked them why they were so sad, the poor woman said with tears in her eyes, "It is because we have no children. I should be the happiest person in the world if I had a son, even though he were no bigger than my husband's thumb. I would be satisfied." Merlin was so amused by the idea of a boy no bigger than a man's thumb that he decided to grant the poor woman's wish. In a short time, the farmer's wife had a son, and he was not bigger than his father's thumb. One night, while the mother was admiring her child, the Queen of Fairies came to the window. The Fairy Queen kissed the boy and named him Tom Thumb. He then sent for some of her fairies, who dressed him as she ordered. A cap of oak leaf for his crown, a jacket woven of thistledown, a shirt of web by spiders spun, his trousers now of feathers done, stocking of apple peel to tie, with eyelashes from his mother's eye, shoes made of mouse's skin, tanned with the downy of the hair within. Tom never grew any larger than his father's thumb, which was only of ordinary size, but as he grew older, he became very clever and full of tricks. When he was old enough to play marbles with the other boys, he sometimes lost all his marbles. Then he would creep into the bags of his playmates to fill his pockets. Crawling out without being noticed, he would again join the game. One day, as he was coming out of a bag of marbles, where he had been stealing as usual, the boy to whom the bag belonged saw him. "Ah, ha, my little Tommy," said the boy. "So at last I have caught you stealing my marbles. You shall be punished for your trick." He drew a string of the bag tight around Tom's neck and gave the bag such a shake the poor little Tom was in a great pain. He cried out and begged to be let free. "I will never steal again," he said. At last, a short time later, his mother was making a batter pudding. Tom, being anxious to see how it was made, climbed up to the edge of the bowl. Then his foot slipped and he fell into the batter. His mother had not seen him. She stirred him into the pudding and put it on the pot to boil. The batter filled Tom's mouth and prevented him from crying, but he kicked and struggled so much as the pot grew hot that his mother thought the pudding was bewitched. Taking it out of the pot, she threw it outside the door. A poor tinker who had been passing by picked up the pudding. Putting it into his bag, he walked off with it. Tom had now got his mouth clear of the batter, and he began to cry aloud. This frightened the tinker so much that he flung down the pudding and ran away. The pudding string broke. Tom crept out, covered all over with batter, and walked home. His mother was very sorry to see her darling in such a state. She put him into a teacup and washed off the batter, then kissed him and put him to bed. Soon after this, Tom's mother went to milk her cow in the meadow and took Tom along with her. Lest the high wind should blow him away, she tied him to a thistle with a piece of fine thread. But the cow saw Tom's oak leaf hat. She liked the looks of it and grabbed poor Tom in the thistle in one mouthful. Tom was afraid of her great teeth and roared out as loud as he could, "Mother! Mother!" "Where are you, Tommy?" asked his mother. "Here, mother, in the red cow's mouth." His mother began to cry, but the cow, surprised at the odd noise Tom was making in her throat, opened her mouth and let Tom drop out. Luckily, his mother caught him in her apron as he was falling down, or he would have been dreadfully hurt. One day, Tom's father had made a whip of barley straw so that he could drive the cattle. Out in the field, Tom slipped. He rolled over and over and over into a steep furrow of earth. A raven flying over picked him up and carried him out to sea. There it dropped him. The moment Tom fell into the sea, a large fish swallowed him. Soon after, the fish was caught, and he was brought to the table of King Arthur. When the king opened the fish in order to cook it, out jumped the tiny boy. Tom was happy to be free again. The cook carried him to the king, who made Tom his special dwarf. Soon he began to be a great favorite at court. By his tricks and fun, he amused the king and queen, and also the knights of the Round Table. The king quite often took Tom with him when he rode out on his horse. If it rained, Tom would creep into the king's pocket and sleep until the rain was over. One day, King Arthur asked Tom about his parents. The king wished to know if they were as small as Tom and whether they were well off. Tom told the king that his father and mother were as tall as anyone about the court, but rather poor. The king then carried Tom to the room where he kept all his money and told him to take as much as he could carry home to his parents. Tom, full of joy, at once got a purse, but it would hold only one silver piece. Even this he could hardly lift. At last he managed to place his load on his back, and he set forward on the journey home. After resting more than 100 times by the way, in 2 days and 2 nights he reached his father's house. Tom was tired almost to death. His mother carried him into the house. During his visit, Tom told his parents many stories about the court. One day, however, he decided he must return to the king. Back at court, the king noticed how much Tom's clothes had suffered from being in the batter pudding and inside the fish, and as well from his journey. So the king ordered new suit to be made for him, and he had Tom mounted on a mouse, like a knight with a needle for a sword. It was great fun to see Tom in his new suit, mounted on the mouse. When he rode out hunting with the king and his knights, everyone was ready to laugh. The king was so pleased with Tom that he had a little chair made also, so that Tom might sit upon his table, then to live in which he gave him a little palace of gold, with a door an inch wide. There was a coach, too, drawn by 6 small mice. This way Tom was happy for a long time, and his parents were pleased with his success. And that is the story of Tom Thumb. Until next time, in the next fairy tale, keep push and play.